call this meeting of the Ojai Groundwater Management Agency to order on August 28th at 3 p.m. I'm gonna call the roll.
Director Finch.
Here.
Director Weaver.
Here.
Chair Hages.
Here. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, director's announcements. Jim?
Nothing.
Mike?
No, nothing.
I don't have anything either. Okay. General manager comments.
Before we do that, would you like to do the swearing in of Mr. Springer?
Sure.
Should I just go out there? We're gonna go short back.
Are we in the video? Do you want us in the video?
No, you are not in the
You're
video.
not. Maybe come up to the microphone? At least. There you go.
And share it. Okay.
You want me to read this one?
Yes.
Okay, I, Michael Springer, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter in. Subscribe to this before me on this 28th day of August 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I'll have you sign this. Okay.
All right. All right.
All right.
Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Listening to my speech.
Okay, and, top, yes. Oh, gosh.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Julia?
Okay, here's my report. At the last meeting, the board directed me to look for some samples of leak relief programs from similar agencies. I reached out to United, Carp Valley GSA, the county, and Director Weaver provided Casitas's leak relief program. And I did speak to some of them on the phone. They did not have written policies. Most said that it was something that would be a discretionary action of the board. And I don't know that the one for Casitas is very applicable. There are a lot of constraints on it and what needs to be provided and the limits of the leak relief program. I did speak with the well owner who had asked for leak relief and mentioned that we had thought they were going to come to the last meeting, and they said they went to the office instead of here where the meeting is. So I said they could come again to the public comment period, but I don't see them here, and I don't know that they're on the phone or on the Zoom call. So I was basically not going to do anything else about it at this point, unless you direct me otherwise.
Okay.
We did go through the meter exemption process and pass that ordinance. Last Friday, I sent out about a dozen letters to the people who had requested interest in getting an exemption from installing a meter. Gotten 1 or 2 questions back about it, but it is a process that they have to go through to get their certificate of exemption from the county first. So that'll probably take some time, and then we'll see if anybody ends up applying. They have until the end of the year to apply, so if I don't hear from them after that, then they're not exempt, and I'll need to start writing letters again to install a meter. We have had quite a few conversations with people coming in to get their statements filled out accurately with photos of their meters, which has been really helpful to see the digits, the meter multipliers, the units, and make sure that they're doing their math right, and then kind of training them in person how to do it. So I'm hopeful that we'll have fewer corrections or, mistakes going forward. Next month, I will plan to present a couple proposals for the 5-year periodic evaluation of the groundwater sustainability plan. I've been talking with Dudek and with Jordan about the tasks that are going to be associated with that. It will be a heavy lift next year. It will be due January of 2027, so a good part of 2026 is going to be spent on that. You'll see a placeholder for that in the budget when we get to that item. And that is all I have to report on.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next item is public comments. Is there anyone online that would like to make any comments on items not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into the consent agenda. We have the,
Wait,
Didn't we do the
does basin
basin?
status?
oh, I'm sorry.
If you wanna skip.
No, go
item
ahead.
five, that's
Go ahead.
your prerogative.
Oh, there's rocks.
Is the news that bad?
Let's talk about rocks.
Yeah, there's, as they say, what's more fun than a box of rocks? So, if you say nothing, well, what does that say? Today I wanted to talk about racing toward fall. Here we are, late summer, Ojai Basin conditions. I did bring some box of rocks, as was previously alluded. I'll show that at a time during this presentation, and then afterwards, feel free to come and take a closer look if you wish. Year-to-date rainfall totals, no surprise, nothing for quite some time, still at 15.39 inches on the ridge, 9.02 on the valley floor. What's that doing to the groundwater side of things? As dry as it's been, we are racing downwards with the static water levels in the Key Well area. As of yesterday, about 131.82 feet below ground surface, which approximates the reference point for the Elrod well. That gives us about 75% of basin capacity, or about 60,000 acre feet in storage within the basin. What I noticed about this evaluation was that the last time we had a really steep recession like this in groundwater levels was 2012. And incidentally, the groundwater elevation and depth was very similar in this Key Well. So just wanted to do a bit more comparison for that. At the Elrod well, the race of 2012 versus 2025. In 2012, the depth to water was 97 feet in March of that year. We had 11.35 inches of rain on the valley floor, 20.91 on the ridge. So it was a little bit wetter overall than the 2025, but the preceding years were not as wet. 2011 was wet, but not as wet as 2023 and 2024. In 2025, the peak was 99.77 feet on April 6th. We had 9.02 inches of rain on the valley floor, 15.39 on the ridge. What's interesting is that in 2012, zoom in part of this graph, you've got a nadir of 182 feet in the Key Well on October 4th. That means, we went down, 80, 90 feet almost in 6 months. And we'll see what happens here in 2025. And I would argue that any shallower than that 182 feet in November, we're doing a good job of conserving water in the basin compared to 13 years ago. So it'll be interesting to see what we get in the next 2 to 3 months. Budgetarily speaking, on the inflow and outflow side, we're really still dry on all of the flowing in creeks and channels to the basin. on the surface at least. There's certainly some subsurface flow eking its way into the basin. But the outflow at Montgomery Creek, at Creek Road, is just a trickle. We call it 1/100th of a CFS. And the surface flow out in the main channel of San Antonio Creek there at the basin boundary of 1.47 CFS. So our total inflow of 0 as surface flow, unsurprising this time of year given the amount of rainfall we had, and the outflow of 1.48 CFS. We also have a couple of wells that have been ongoing in their drilling process as permitted by this agency in the county of Ventura. There's one on Shippey Lane, there's one on Carn Road, there's one on Orange Road. That's complete. The Ojai Valley Inn monitoring wells are also complete. The Reeves Road is complete, and the Longhorn Lane are complete. So 2 are actively in the process of development and testing. They're actually pretty close to one another. In fact, if we look at where all these wells are drilled, there's the Longhorn Lane down in Persimmon Hill. You got the Reeves Road one on the east end, south side. You got the 5 monitoring wells at Ojai Valley Inn. You've got the one on Orange, and you got the 2 that were drilled almost side by side at this scale. You can hear one being drilled from the other, so it's somewhat of a race between different drillers. Let's see, Sierra Drilling is drilling the one on the east side on Shippey Lane, and Lyle's Land Development is drilling the one on the west on Carn Road. And it's pretty interesting to see what the differences are. Depth to the base of the bedrock here, or the base of the alluvium, top of bedrock, is pretty clear. In these 2 images, and these are actual photographs for the record of the boxes I have here, you go through basin alluvium all the way down to about 420, 430 feet in each of these wells. The well on the west, Carn Road, bottoms in that bluish Sespe material, and we know it's Sespe because of that maroon sample that happens to be right around 380 to 400 feet, and is bracketed by the greenish material, which is also Sespe formation, but more of a sandy unit than the clay that is represented in the red. You'll also notice in this image that some of the alluvium, which is represented in the yellowish rock, is much coarser grained. It's likely more porous and permeable than what is going on at Shippey Lane, where the grain sizes are finer overall, more sand as opposed to gravel, a bit more clay as well in that area. The bedrock is the more distinct Sespe red, and those 20 to 30 feet at the bottom, each of these squares represents about a 10-foot sample of drill cuttings, is much more sandy, traditional maroon Sespe formation. We'll see which ends up making more water, and we'll report on that as time comes, but we'll leave that mostly to the pumpers and the well owners to report. But it is interesting to have these new data points that show exactly where that depth to the base of the alluvium is, and it's pretty consistent with what we have in the GSP and other conceptual models of the basin. But what's interesting to me is really the diversity of grain size just a quarter mile away, as well as the diversity of color in the underlying bedrock. Now, flowing back into the basin, we're looking at a lot of dry conditions. Here's photos of that dryness. Up above Ladera, Thatcher Horn Canyon, the confluence of Gridley and Senior Canyon becoming San Antonio Creek at the dry crossing. Down actually by Sol Park, where you've got effectively dry San Antonio Creek along this stretch. The daylighting of groundwater then just downstream of Sol Park at this time. The Montgomery Stewart Canyon Creek, just that 1/10 of a CFS flowing through. That's relatively still water coming under Creek Road Bridge. And the more significant flow coming out at the basin boundary on San Antonio Creek proper. A little bit lower elevation, so it's picking up more of that perch system water. Still 1.47 or so CFS. At the Old Creek Road, at the county gauge, we've got pretty similar looking conditions, although the flow is a little bit less actually than what's coming out of the Ojai Basin, owing ostensibly to either a thicker package of alluvium here through which that water is percolating and/or phreatic uptake along the umbilicus between the Ojai Basin and the Ventura River confluence. I was curious to see what the Ventura River was reporting currently. So as of today, the Ventura River flowing at about 5.5 CFS. This is at Casitas Vista, so just near Foster Park. Gives you an idea about the percentages of flow that's coming out of the Ojai Basin and eventually working its way there down toward the Ventura River. What do we got coming ahead? It sounds like it's dry and hot pretty much everywhere. Seasonal outlook per NOAA above average temperature-wise and equal to average, dry for September, October, November 2025. What we're seeing for the rest of the year, December, January, February 25, 26, probably a little bit warmer and a little bit drier than average. So I think that's consistent with what I'd expect based on what we're seeing so far. Although the water on the ocean's really darn warm. NOAA is calling for El Nino surface oscillation to be neutral to a brief La Nina in late fall to early winter as of this week's presentation. Below normal precipitation overall and slightly warmer temperatures. So there you have that. What I'd like to do is stop this share and turn on the video here because it's kind of easy to see these this way. So zooming into those rocks really at the, here's that 400-foot base of the Ojai Valley alluvium transitioning into the bluish bedrock of the Sespe Formation and the reddish clay that is present within that sandstone as well. This is on the Carn Road parcel. And if we take a look at Shippey Lane, interestingly, the finer grained, some clay and fine sands at the base of the alluvium, and then transitioning relatively sharply from the basal sands and gravels of the alluvial part of the basin into the sandstone bedrock of the Sespe Formation.
What's the depth on the Sespe Formation?
So in this one, it's about 420 feet, and that's corroborated by the geophysical logs. And at Carn Road, it's actually 360 feet to 380 feet.
But those wells must be at least 100 feet difference in elevation.
They're pretty similar. Yeah, they're almost due east-west of one another by only eighth of a mile, quarter mile, something like that. So it's not too different.
Okay.
Yeah. Questions?
How deep are the Ojai Valley Inn monitoring wells?
They range from 18 feet to 29 feet, just in the creek alluvium that's there.
They're just right on the bank of the creek.
They're not far from the bank of the creek, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, now public comments. Anyone have any public comments? Oh. Are there any public comments? Hearing none. Consent agenda, we have the financial report for July and the minutes for the July 31st meeting.
So move.
Second.
I'll second.
Call the roll.
Director Finch,
Yes.
Director Weaver,
Yes.
Chair Hages.
Yes. For the record, Director Bob Daddy is now present. And we'll move to action items, which are none, and then the discussion items. We'll start with the draft budget. Julia?
All right, I attached in your agenda package, you'll see a spreadsheet with a draft budget for next fiscal year, which would start on October 1st And so the goal is to go through the draft today and incorporate any comments, bring it back to the board for adoption at the September meeting. I based the income amounts on 3,500 acre feet of extractions over the fiscal year. To date, we're about at a little over 2,500 as of the end of June this year, so I think 3,500 is a reasonable number. Significant expenditures next year are going to be, as I mentioned, the periodic update for the groundwater sustainability plan and the numerical groundwater model that needs to be updated to support that effort. There are also a couple items from the recommendations from DWR when they reviewed our groundwater sustainability plan, like the groundwater dependent ecosystems assessment and the constructive use plan that we need to address next year as part of the update. And then we're approaching the 2-year mark for financial audits. So we'll do an audit next year to combine 2 fiscal years into 1 audit. I also should have included participation in that small groundwater sustainability agency coalition. I can talk about that more during the legislative piece, but that would be about $6,000 budgeted for the year, which is $500 a month for an agency our size. That could go up or down a little bit depending on how many agencies participate, because they're just spreading their cost around. I did want to also point out that we implemented that $100 an acre feet for groundwater sustainability plan implementation last January, and we've built up a good amount in our bank accounts so that if we are under in our income or over in our expenses, that's what we can tap into. And of course, we'll work with Jordan and Devin to tackle that periodic evaluation in the most cost-efficient way possible to meet all the requirements, and only that. That's my philosophy, is to meet the requirements. So do you have any questions on the proposed budget? I see a typo already, so you don't have to point that out.
Any questions?
What was this year's budget on? 3,500 also?
Yes, no, actually, it was that column that says budget from 24-25, that was based on 3,000 acre feet. So it was 300,000, the first line.
1/7 lower.
I'm sorry?
1/7 lower, okay.
Yeah.
Julia, we have some significant expenses coming up.
Yes.
Are we guesstimating over 400,000?
No, I put a placeholder in for 200,000 for the GSP periodic evaluation. It's a placeholder until I get the proposals from these two, so next month I'll know more what the actual number is.
Our last giant report to State Water, wasn't that 3.25? Wasn't that in a 300 plus?
I wasn't here then, but I can
Okay.
go back and check.
Okay.
I think we're,
Multiple years, though.
yeah.
Yeah,
for the
it was spread over multiple years.
For the 5-year, I think we originally in the rate review budgeted 250,000.
Right.
Why on the mathematical model do we have to, because, I mean, what do we have to do there? Because our contention is our model is correct.
The groundwater model?
Yeah.
Oh, it was developed with proprietary software, and it needs to be off the shelf, open source software to meet DWR's requirements. So it needs to be converted. And there's a little bit of updating that we need with these new wells and things, but it's the conversion. Yeah.
Wasn't that the same software the state used?
I am not 100% familiar. Maybe Devin can address that. Daniel B. Stevens created the model, and a lot of them use off-the-shelf software, and then they customize it, and then you can't really get into it unless you hire them to do it. Devin, does that sound right?
Yeah, the watershed model. So it's a coupled surface water, groundwater model, and the watershed model is proprietary to Daniel B. Stevens. And actually, the mod flow code of the groundwater model happens to also not be the recommended code for the open source mod flow model. So for this year, we're actually not proposing um, to transition the model to these new codes. This year, it will just be incorporating some DWR climate change factors into the existing model, and then to spread out the expenses to actually undertake the model transition and update in future years. So in 2027 and beyond. So the cost for GSP implementation this year, the biggest cost will be the periodic evaluation, which is required every 5 years. And it's an evaluation of the GSP. And there's a guidance document that explains all of the different kind of topics that are required to be addressed, including review of the monitoring network and sustainable management criteria and so forth. And then there's also, as Julia mentioned, the recommended corrective actions by DWR, which included taking a look at interconnected surface water again, and also the providing additional supporting information regarding the establishment of the sustainable management criteria for groundwater levels and quality. And so that will be over the next year. The cost, the primary cost for GSP implementation is preparing that large document.
I have a follow-up. I think it's time that we get our legislative committee on the stick, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. We don't have very much of a change over the last 35 years we've been doing this. We don't have subsidence. We don't have all kinds of things. We have extremely limited growth in the use. And we're just barely, 3,500 acre feet is just hovering above what Golden State was when they were an urban water provider for the rurals. I would hope that we could get our local legislators to come up with maybe a statutory 5,000 acre feet for such an expansive, broad study, or subsidence, or some other type of a thing that's an actual change for us. We're just not changing. It just ends up being the same thing, Groundhog Day over and over. So I would hope that we could get our legislative committee to get a couple of sponsors and really hit that thing, make that a super priority, because that's a lot of money just to get the same information.
And I can talk about it during the legislative ad hoc committee piece of it if you'd like.
Yeah, we need to do something. I mean, that's just too much money for nothing.
The other things included there are the contractual increase with Casitas for my services, as well as the hourly rate for the part-time staff in the office. What's not included are any funds that get deposited with the agency for new well applications and things like that, since they're funded by the applicant.
Do you have an estimate of what our reserve balance will be if we adopt this budget?
I can do a little cash flow projection for next time.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Next item is review draft revised financial policy and procedures manual.
Based on Bob's comments the last couple meetings, I guess, there was some discussion about updating the financial policies and procedures to allow the general manager to have a higher signing authority for consultant legal services. So I created a redlined version of the document that was adopted in, I think it was January of 2024. Yeah. So you can see on the red line, there's a few little adjustments in section 3.1, the purchase authorization. I'm proposing to go from 2,500 to 5,000, and that's just for things like computers or other office equipment, small purchases. Then in section 8 is where consulting and legal services are addressed, and that's where I inserted some language so that the general manager has authority up to $25,000 for professional services. And anything higher than that would come to the board for approval. There's some other minor edits throughout as well.
So the curiosity, how often during the year does this come up to, that's over 25,000?
A handful. Oh, if it's over 25, I mean, for example, for the GSP periodic evaluation, that will be, Jordan's will be, I'd say this comes up maybe 3 or 4 times a year at the most. And then all the things that I'm doing with the Access Database Consultant I wouldn't have to bring those to you. I just keep working on those in the background and give you updates.
And then the agreements with the small groundwater people and other things we do, I just think that this is too limited. 25,000 for contracts, and I would even think 10,000 for purchases. $2,500 is not even a state-of-the-art computer. So I would recommend we move the purchases from.
Well, for something this size, I actually, I wouldn't move it beyond that.
I think based on our budget and our financial position, these felt like the right level for me, that I was comfortable with.
Yeah, I've worked for agencies that have multi-million-dollar budgets, and they don't go much higher than this.
Yeah, five is pretty.
And it takes a lot of time to go through these things.
So the
and I
thing you always
see
have to
them
remember
approved.
is policies stay in place and people change.
That's true.
So you want something that's there as a legacy for whoever else comes in.
Agreed.
The record, Andy Whitman is now present. Hi, Andy.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone have any other opinion on that?
I like the way it's written.
5 and 25?
So I was planning to bring that back next month for adoption
Okay.
with the final budget as well.
All right, so you'll have another shot at it, Bob.
And things that are in the budget and approved on the budget, I mean, that's
Yes.
approved. So the 25, I mean.
Well, if it's under, well, that's another issue. Is it in the budget?
Yeah,
Is it
it's
an
a little
approved
different
item? Yeah.
because there aren't a lot of line items in the budget, like just a catch-all for consulting services doesn't really give you enough detail, whereas other agencies might have specific projects with a budget.
Yeah, well, typically any
Exactly.
capital purchases are approved.
I would make a request that after you bring this back and whatever we approve, anytime we exceed these thresholds, you'd report back to us how many times. I'd like to keep track
Okay?
and see how adequate this is gonna be.
Do that.
You'll see it every time the threshold is exceeded.
I'll just
It's the
keep a check.
it's the unders you wouldn't
Correct,
see other than on the cash flow
right.
Yeah, you will
dispersion. You'd see it on the dispersions, but.
I would just say that public agencies have to be conservative. That's just the way it is.
Agreed. Yeah,
It's
and
a
like I
pain
said,
in the
that,
neck, but
that was what I felt comfortable with, just wanting to be transparent with everything.
yeah. And it's for the staff's protection too, so they don't get accused of doing something, especially with contracts. You gotta be careful with contracts, because there's some issues with our ability to enter into contracts, particularly if they're multi-year, so. Anything else?
On that item?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Legislative ad hoc committee update.
So the committee has not met, but I can certainly set up a call with Bob, with you and Andy in the next couple weeks if you want to talk about some strategies. You weren't here when he was mentioning the 5-year periodic evaluation is going to be a significant expense for the agency next year, and would like to consider some kind of legislative relief going forward.
Right.
It won't be in time to not have to do the 5-year update, but maybe for the next time. So the Small Groundwater Sustainability Agency Coalition has been circulating a memorandum of understanding for the participants to consider. So up to date, the Sonoma County Water Agency has funded that coalition on behalf of all the participants with a staff member and paying their lobbyist. That's gonna come to an end, and so they're asking to spread the cost around to the participating agencies, and there will be an MOU. The structure is still a little bit in flux, whether the small GSAs will create some kind of entity that has a contract with the lobbyist, or whether each agency individual has a contract with the lobbyist for their participation. We're still working that part out. But when something is developed, I will bring that MOU to the board in whatever form it is. And then I believe it's a worthwhile group to participate in going forward. So I will include the recommended budget for that in the final budget.
Julia, would you put in the key points that State Water's looking for? The changes every 5 years, they're looking for a difference. They're looking for different factors in there, and it would be important, at least to us, because they're so tiny, to take a look and see how many of those factors don't change and aren't relevant, and really aren't going to help or jeopardize or do anything with our particular basin. So we do talk about legislation. We can say, look, this hasn't changed in 20 years. This hasn't changed in 35 years. We can go back and then see if there are actual things. Again, we're not sinking like Los Banos and a bunch of those other places. We have, I understand why they're concerned about that, but there's a reason they're concerned about that.
Devin, if you could send me those guidelines for the periodic evaluation,
Yeah, certainly.
I can forward that on. Thank you.
I can provide those. And Bob, you are correct. I mean, many of the sections of the periodic evaluation will be straightforward. Management hasn't changed or conditions haven't changed. Yet there are areas that will need work, such as generating current and future water budgets with the model, and addressing DWR's corrective actions, as well as the many comments received on the GSP that led DWR to providing those corrective actions, continuing to investigate interconnected surface water and so forth. So there is some additional analysis that's required to ensure the basin continues to be managed sustainably into the future.
Thank you.
Yeah. All those other members of the group, the small district group, also coming up for that 5-year report in about a year?
Yes.
So it's all on. We're all on the same cycle.
Schedule.
And I don't know what kind of data goes completely into those reports. I think I've seen them before, but it seems like the group could potentially, over the next year, as they're gathering the data and their consultants are gathering the data, to, start earmarking stuff that might be something to take to the legislature and say, look, what we're spending money on that really isn't doing benefit. to our basin or to the bigger issues.
One of the things that has come up is a lot of, I guess I would call it kind of duplicative work, where you've got, you know, an exhibit or a figure that you have to show, and then there's a long explanation associated with it when it's all just right there in the exhibit.
Right?
So they're trying to streamline is the word that's the buzzword that we're trying to work with DWR. Like I said, it might not be for this evaluation, but we can certainly flag those things as we're going through it. Like, this could really be simplified next time. Okay.
Yeah, one of the other things they could look at is revisit why we were designated a priority basin.
Agreed.
Because we kind of fell into this trap because we serve or provide water to a large residential and business community in the city of Ojai, that made it a priority basin, because if the basin goes dry, the city goes dry. And that isn't the fact here.
It's not true.
You know,
Yeah.
we have a backup supply. Even 90% of the agricultural operations probably still have a backup supply. So why are we a priority basin? We're not in overdraft. We've reduced our pumping significantly. So is there a review process that we could go through?
You look like you want to say something, Jordan.
It almost speaks to the attempt that we had to avoid going down the GSP plant with the alternative demonstration. And you look at who's been successful with that, and it's relatively large outfits like Orange County Water District for the Orange County Coastal Plain Basin. Showed management, yes, municipal supply, yes, conjunctive use, yet yes, redundant supply. I think the big issue that saw the most challenges with the alternative demonstration was the interconnected surface water issue. And since that report went out, while many of the assumptions we made in generating that report have rung true and are backed up by now 5, 6, 7 years of data, we could potentially revisit that instead of an update to the GSP. If we could demonstrate, assuming that the alternative demonstration is still a viable option, maybe instead of going down the GSP update route, let's go to the alternative demonstration. Just food for thought, but that's really the thing that comes to mind.
Oh, Peter, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just that, hi, everybody. Good to see y'all. Yeah, there's nothing immediately that jumps out to me, other than options that we could explore. I mean, I think Jordan's proposal is an interesting one. You know, as far as I recall, the statutes, the alternative demonstration, you know, that was something that you could do early on in the SIGMA process. Now that we're, you know, well down the road, whether we could revisit that, I don't know. It might require a couple phone calls to DWR, you know, investigate it further, but you know, happy to look into it and see what options we might have, whether it be alternative demonstration, whether it be an effort to deprioritize our basin. You know, all of the above we can explore.
So,
Jim?
You know, the thing that I sit here, and I've said this before, and am confused over, is the lawsuit that's also going on right now. It's going to have certain outcomes that also have some of these same needs and requirements, and you could work really hard to get rid of the certain things, but then you're doing them for another reason anyway. I mean, we just have to make sure that we're not doing the same work 3 times over. I mean, do what reports we need to fulfill these. And I know the lawsuit thing is not settled, and not us specifically, especially yet, but down the road it may well be that we're some party to the whole settlement thing of it. And we just want to make sure that we're not doing duplicate work just to do duplicate work and work the legislations down the legislators down the road.
So there's a lot of areas, that I've learned where the state has their, statewide mandates. But, and they may work great in a big basin situation or in a big city situation. But we have to comply with all kinds of rules that big cities are complying with, that make no sense in the context of a town of 7,500 people. And so, one of the things that, maybe the group could look at or we look at on ourselves, and this is kind of along the lines of what everybody's been saying, but, can we come up with a criteria that says if you meet these things, you really shouldn't have to be making this report?
If this is not happening, then you don't have to do it.
Some off-ramps.
Yeah, yes, exactly. If we can show, 20 years, 50 years of the basin never being in doubt, why are we having to, we should only be reporting on those things that would actually trigger a concern about sustainability.
Right. And determine what those triggers are.
What those triggers are, and potentially, create, like you said, an off-ramp from this onerous reporting requirement, because we just don't have that level of concern.
Julia, didn't you send us some information about this coalition of how much each one of these different agencies actually use at one time?
They all use less than 10,000 acre-feet a year. That was kind of the criteria for being small. I don't have it in this handout, but I do have that.
Under
It's
5,000.
mostly in like the 2,000 to 5,000 acre-feet per year range.
Is that readily available?
I can resend it to you, yeah.
Would you please? Because I'd like to see, what do we have, how many in there now in that
There's a dozen.
coalition?
There's 12.
12, okay. It would just be interesting to see how many are below 5,000 and aim for an exemption at 5,000 acre feet a year, unless there's an occurrence or a change. That's what I think would be because it's just the same old thing over and over and over again. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, I've thought about the same thing with certain city issues where, you exempt cities of less than, 10,000 people or whatever. And these criteria, we shouldn't have to do what other communities are having to do.
The unless rule. Unless it changes.
Unless there's a
right, yeah,
trigger,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
of some kind. Okay.
All right, well, it'll be interesting to see if we get any bites on that. But I think the interesting thing is that, the OBGMA, let alone the Ojai Basin, has been around now for, what, three decades? Apparently it's sustainable.
Right.
So what element are we out of compliance with? Nothing, except for this groundwater or surface water interaction, and that may get solved, who knows?
Right.
Is the geology of our basin dramatically different than some of the others that are in this small
Well,
group?
our nearest neighbor is the Upper Ventura River, GSA, and then Carpinteria is in there, as well as Montecito. Both of those are in this
I think
coalition.
that geology-wise, they're all over the board, would be my guess. Geology is
We seem to have a very stable situation.
very different, I think.
The Ojai Basin is the deepest of these local groundwater basins. Montecito is a little different. Carpinteria is a little different. They have the ocean side, seawater intrusion issues we don't have. But of the Ventura River, of the groundwater basins within the Ventura River watershed, the Ojai Basin is the deepest and really the most actually like a basin. I thought the closest analog in California is the Arvin Basin, Arvin Tehachapi area. It's a relatively similarly sized basin, but it's higher and drier than we are here. And there are a few other small intermontane basins that have some similarities but aren't exactly the same kind of size as the Ojai Basin is. So it is a unique environment and geologically unique, and keeps it exciting for us. But at the same time, there's little challenges that are unique to Ojai, and that interconnected surface water is really the one folks have glommed onto. And as Director Hay just said, it's something that's being addressed with physical solutions potentially, and really just better understanding of the interaction or lack thereof from the deeper systems that produce the water supply.
It may make a difference of who we choose as our partners.
Yeah, and my reaction to what you were saying is I've been listening to Jordan for 3 years, and I think we really are a unique basin in the sense that, we just very consistently recharge, where other systems are, potentially a lot more water just kind of flowing out to the sea. We got this confined basin, that I think is, I don't know how unique that is or not, but it seems like the reports that Jordan gives us are, very consistent, and I've never seen him express concern that things are happening that should cause us concern that we're going to be in an overdraft situation.
Yeah, and Peter, maybe you could help me out. When we say overdraft, we mean the irreversible and continued decline of groundwater and storage. Ojai's never had an irreversible condition like that. We receive the recharge from a relatively large tributary area that feeds a relatively small alluvial storage area by a factor of about 3 to 1. That's huge.
I know I asked you a few meetings back about the fact that we went through many years of drought, and then we got 2 years of rain, and how many years of drought, if we started multiple years of drought right now, how many years would it take us to put us back to 2000 or 2022, or when we were when the valley was in a lot of trouble? And your answer was, we are in such a better position even than when the drought started, that the fact that we got 2 good but not necessarily unheard of rain years, and we're back in a very healthy situation, I think is really impressive with how this basin responds.
Yeah, and response is the key. There will be drought, there will be deluge, and we will weather them all.
Well, the key is we have a huge backup supply, so we can afford to operate the basin up and down and not worry about running out of water.
Yeah.
And we're not destroying storage. I mean, if you look at other basins where they have saltwater intrusion or they have subsidence, they wind up losing storage. So even if they do get good wet years, they can't fill it back up to original capacity. So we have a good argument. I hope somebody's listening.
Well, and that seems to be the two things that seem to be totally in our favor is our storage capacity. And if we're using 3,500 acre feet a year, and we are always going to have a 10-year reserve. And if you take a look at the wells, when the level gets down a little, it dramatically closes down the amount of users. So, the drafting comes to a standstill just about. So I think we've got good arguments. We just need to see if we can get somebody to give us their ear and promote a law that limits or excludes really small agencies. Maybe we need a different category. Call ourselves
Extra small?
a mini agency, so that way, like, nobody confuses us with the big agencies, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Sigma legislation was definitely one size fits all. And it is not applicable, many of the requirements in there. And that's what a lot of these other agencies, their contention is as well. You know, everybody's unique. Every basin's unique. So that's the kind of the power of being in that group is that it's a lot of voices acting together. You know, we had that Sacramento Day back in May. It really will take kind of a champion and a legislator to help see any legislative changes through before the next one. So, you know, locally we can talk about it on a call.
Yeah. I think I agree with Bob that size is an important thing to put in front of legislators, but I think probably equally important is stability. You know, because we can look back at our statistics and see how much water's coming in and how much water is going out, and there's no reason to be concerned at this point.
Yeah, the surface water thing is the thing we have to
address.
deal with, because that's what they're after right now. But I think it's worth pursuing. I mean, this is,
Speaking of water in versus water out, you bring up a great point. And in looking at item 7A on your agenda, we have a reporting of the acre-foot extraction from January, February, March 2025 of 679.44 acre feet, and April, May, June extraction of 892.59 acre feet. By my math, that's 1,572.03 acre feet. That's geologist math, so you can check. Back in June, we made the prediction that we received 1,600 acre feet of recharge this year. And that amount of recharge is based on how much the basin came up. And then it came down almost the exact same amount, in a mirror image almost, and we estimated 1,600 acre feet. The reporting of the pumping is 1,572. So I was wrong.
Get it together.
But let me just show
That's
this
the
little
thing,
graphic
it
to
doesn't change.
kind of show this kind of thing, because I think it's kind of cool. There you go. So there's that 2025 recharge and pumping. That Elrod well, this is a graphic, a frame grab from our prediction of 1,600 acre feet of recharge coming in, which also went out via pumping only. And our record of pumping, 679.44, 892.59, 1572.03. So, there you go.
do we need a convoluted model update to tell us that?
Or 5 minutes of geologist math.
Well, but the other thing is just look at, I think, to show how much we pumped 7, 8 years ago and where we're at now, because I think, we're on a steady downward course
Oh,
because
yeah.
of what's happening to agriculture.
Yeah.
And one last thing. John, could we get into and really understand irreversible damage? I think that's something State Water's looking at, that they're casting too far out. It's too broad, it's not specific, and it should have criteria, because I don't believe they can come up with a single criteria that applies to our basin that is irreversible. We just go through the cycle. We reverse it every few years. We draw down, we fill up. And so I don't see where there's anything that would be irreversible other than legislative.
Yeah,
it's
Certainly not on our end.
seawater intrusion or subsidence, that's what's irreversible, or quality
Water quality.
contamination.
But, I mean, those are all reversible, they just take money.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Subsidence? I
We,
don't know.
Yeah.
well,
Lot of
subsidence would be tough.
Elastic versus inelastic
Okay,
subsidence.
okay, I'll
That's-
take that
Really
back, I'll take
deep-
that one
deep
back.
ripper.
And seawater intrusion, I can't even imagine
Push
that
back
far.
and see.
Push back the- push back the
18 miles.
lot of money.
You replace the citrus with almonds.
Agave.
There you go.
Agave. I have
Your
heard
water
of people
usage goes
planting
up.
agave.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Like, almonds are like at the top of the food chain.
Walnuts take 4 gallons per nut. That's insane.
Okay. Next. Meter compliance.
We did not have a formal meeting, but we did, no, we did after the last board meeting. We did have a call. There is one outstanding non-compliant well owner. You might remember there were 2 that we brought to the board to impose fines and penalties. The board rescinded a portion of one of them. The other one has still not complied and still not communicated their intent to comply. So I sent them, with Peter's help, sent them a notice for a board hearing at the next meeting on the 20, I think it's the 24th, 25th. The next board meeting will have a hearing for that well owner to, again, consider imposing additional penalties for meter noncompliance.
Okay. Anything else on that subject? If not, we're adjourned at 4:02, I think that is.
Did I see a meter on that?
Good.
Peter, we'll give you a call to have that little discussion. That's all right?
Okay, yeah, you call me today, should I stand by for that?
You and Julia.
No, I'll just call you on your, from my phone.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
Thanks.
I'm signing off. You guys all have a good evening.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Oh,
Are we still transmitting? We still live? We still up?
58?